2 weeks before my wedding, I caught my fiancée lying about her sister's whereabouts. It changed everything. I've always considered myself a practical man with just enough romance in my soul to appreciate the good things in life. And Madeline? She was the best thing that ever happened to me. 6 years together, 1 year engaged, and in just 2 weeks, she'd be my wife. Everything was in place. The venue, the guests, even those tiny napkins with our initials that she insisted on. Perfect, like her. That's what everyone said about Madeline. Perfect. Beautiful in that effortless way, smart enough to keep any conversation interesting, and thoughtful. God, was she thoughtful. She remembered everyone's birthdays, preferences, the names of their pets. She made life smooth, made our home a place I couldn't wait to return to each day. I'd landed the dream girl, and I knew it. So why couldn't I shake this feeling, this nagging sensation that something wasn't quite right? Nothing I could point to, nothing I could name. Just a shadow at the edge of my happiness that I couldn't quite identify. Tonight was like any other. Madeline in the kitchen cooking dinner, me outside working on my latest woodworking project. After an hour of sanding, my throat was dry as sandpaper. I headed inside for water, wiping sawdust from my hands. I heard her voice before I saw her. Madeline was on the phone, stirring something on the stove with her free hand. I recognized the voice on speaker immediately. James, Vanessa's husband. Vanessa is Madeline's older sister, always slightly disapproving of me but civil enough. "Have you heard from Vanessa?" James asked, concern evident in his voice. "She's not answering my texts." Madeline didn't miss a beat. "Oh, she just left here. Said she'd be home in about 30 minutes. I froze with my hand on the refrigerator door. Wait a minute. Didn't we see Vanessa yesterday at her place? Why would Madeline say she just left our house? "I've been trying to reach her for hours," James continued. "Well, her phone died while she was here," Madeline replied smoothly. "I let her use my charger for a bit, but she was in a hurry." As I poured my water, pieces started clicking together in my mind. Madeline was typing on her phone while talking to James, texting someone. She mentioned she was texting Vanessa right now. But James just said Vanessa wasn't answering. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Why would Madeline lie about something so small? Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe Vanessa really was here while I was outside working, though I hadn't seen her car. Standing there in our kitchen, watching Madeline lie so effortlessly, I suddenly felt like I was looking at a stranger. 6 years together, and now I was wondering, what else might she be lying about? I couldn't sleep that night. I lay beside Madeline, watching her peaceful breathing, her face relaxed and innocent in sleep, and it felt like I was drowning. How could someone look so pure while harboring such deceit? The question tormented me until the digital clock read 3:17 a.m. I slipped out of bed as quietly as possible. Madeline's phone sat on the nightstand, charging. We'd always known each other's passcodes, a gesture of trust we'd established early on. What a joke that seemed now. My hand trembled as I typed in her code. 2803, her grandmother's birthday. The screen unlocked instantly, revealing a photo of us at the beach last summer, laughing. I almost put the phone down then. Almost. Instead, I opened her messages and searched for Vanessa's name. What I found made my stomach turn. Hundreds of texts between them, stretching back months. I scrolled through them, each message making me feel sicker than the last. "Z wants to meet tomorrow at the usual hotel. Can you cover for me if James calls?" Vanessa had written 3 days ago. "Of course, I'll say you're helping me with wedding stuff. James is too dense to question it anyway." That was Madeline's reply. Z Zachary, Vanessa's co-worker at the accounting firm, the one who'd brought his wife to our engagement party. I kept reading, unable to stop myself. The messages were explicit, detailing Vanessa's 6-month affair with Zachary in graphic terms. And Madeline wasn't just aware. She was actively helping, creating alibis, laughing at James's ignorance, even sharing hotel recommendations. "Poor James," Vanessa had written. "He actually bought me flowers yesterday because I seemed distant. If only he knew where I'd been an hour earlier." Madeline had responded with a laughing emoji. A fucking laughing emoji. The text blurred as tears filled my eyes. Not just from the betrayal of Madeline helping her sister cheat, but from the casual cruelty of it all. The mockery of James, a decent guy who'd always been kind to me. They laughed at his pain, his confusion. What did Madeline say about me when I wasn't around? Did she mock me too? I put the phone down and walked to our living room, collapsing onto the couch. The wedding invitations we'd spent weeks selecting were stacked neatly on the coffee table. 2 more weeks, and we would have been husband and wife. By morning, I knew what I had to do. Madeline found me in the kitchen, already dressed, my eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "Lucas, are you okay? You look terrible." I couldn't even look at her. "We need to talk." "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Her voice was filled with concern. Such perfect acting. "I know about Vanessa and Zachary," I said flatly. "I know you've been helping her cheat on James for months." The color drained from her face. "You went through my phone?" That's what she focused on? Not the lying, not the betrayal, but the invasion of her privacy? That's what bothers you? Not that you've been helping destroy a marriage? Not that you've been lying to my face? It's complicated, Lucas. Vanessa and James have problems. Don't, my voice cracked. Don't make excuses. I read the messages, Madeline. I saw how you both laughed at him, like it was all some big joke. She reached for me, but I stepped back. "I can't marry you," I said. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. "Lucas, please, let's talk about this. It's not my affair." "But it is your deception," I shouted, surprising both of us. "You think I could ever trust you now? If you can help your sister lie so easily, what would stop you from doing the same to me?" Tears streamed down her face. "I love you. I would never—" "You already have," I interrupted. "Every day you kept this secret, you were lying to me." 2 weeks before our wedding, deposits lost, explanations needed, families to inform. The thought was overwhelming, but not as overwhelming as the alternative, a lifetime with someone whose moral compass was so fundamentally broken. "The wedding is off," I said, my decision crystallizing with each word. "I'll tell my family today." The look on her face, shock, hurt, anger, would have broken me a day ago. Now it just confirmed what I already knew. I couldn't marry a stranger. With trembling hands, I called Brandon. My older brother had always been my North Star, level-headed, principled, the person I turned to when life got complicated. And this was about as complicated as it could get. "Hey, little brother," he answered, the familiar warmth in his voice almost breaking me. "What's up?" "I'm canceling the wedding," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Silence hung between us for a moment before he replied. "That's unexpected. Are you sure about this, Lucas?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I found something out about Madeline, something I can't look past." I didn't want to get into specifics yet. Saying it out loud would make it too real. Brandon, to his credit, didn't push. "Whatever it is, I'm here for you," he said. "But think this through carefully. 2 weeks before the wedding, there'll be financial consequences. Family fallout. You need to be absolutely certain." "I am," I insisted, though my stomach churned at the thought of telling our parents, of facing Madeline's family. "Some things can't be fixed, Brandon." He sighed. "Then stand your ground. Don't let anyone pressure you into changing your mind. Emotions will run high, but you need to stay firm if this is what you really want." After hanging up, a new thought took hold. James needed to know. The poor guy was being played for a fool while his wife flaunted her affair right under his nose. I couldn't let him keep living a lie. I called Derek, my closest work friend and the only person besides Brandon I trusted completely. "I need your help with something," I told him, explaining the situation. Derek whistled low. "Damn, that's cold. What's the plan?" "We need proof James can't ignore," I said. "Something concrete." That's how we ended up parked outside Vanessa's office 2 days later, watching as she emerged not during her usual lunch hour, but at 3 p.m. She climbed into her BMW and headed not toward home or any restaurant, but toward the Westlake district. "Follow her," I instructed Derek, who trailed at a safe distance. She pulled up outside the Emerson, an upscale cocktail bar known for its private booths and discreet service. Perfect for an affair. "Wait here," I told Derek, who looked uncertain. "You sure about this, man? Maybe we should just take photos from outside." I shook my head. I want to see her face when she realizes her game is up. Inside, the bar was dimly lit, all leather and dark wood. It took my eyes a moment to adjust before I spotted them. Vanessa and a man I recognized as Zachary huddled close in a booth, her hand on his thigh. They weren't alone. 3 other women sat with them, laughing. With a jolt, I recognized one as Alicia, supposedly James's friend from college. Everyone was in on it. Everyone except James. I walked directly to their table, rage propelling me forward. Vanessa saw me first, her smile freezing on her face. "Lucas!" she exclaimed, her hand flying off Zachary's leg. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, cold and deliberate. "Just grabbing a drink. Surprising to see you here, Vanessa. Especially since James thinks you're at a client meeting." Her face drained of color. Zachary, confused, looked between us. "Who's this?" "I'm Lucas." I extended my hand, voice steady. "Madeline's fiancé. Well, ex-fiancé as of yesterday." Zachary's handshake was limp, his expression guarded. "Nice to meet you." "Is it?" I asked, still smiling. "Because I know exactly who you are, Zachary, and what you've been doing with Vanessa for the past 6 months." The table went silent. Alicia shifted uncomfortably while the other women exchanged glances. "I think you should leave," Vanessa hissed, recovering her composure. "You're drunk or something." "Actually, I'm sober as a judge," I replied. "And I've got quite a collection of screenshots between you and Madeline. Very enlightening reading." "What do you want?" Zachary demanded, finally finding his voice. "I want James to know the truth," I said simply. "He deserves that much." Vanessa's face contorted with fear and anger. "You wouldn't." "Why not? Why should you get to destroy his life while he remains oblivious? So you can all laugh at him behind his back? That ends today." "It's complicated," Alicia interjected. "Their marriage has been—" "Save it," I cut her off. "There's nothing complicated about betrayal." I pulled out my phone, scrolling to James's contact. "What are you doing?" Vanessa demanded, her voice rising. "Giving James a choice," I replied, my finger hovering over the call button. "Something you never did." Vanessa lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. "You're going to ruin everything," she cried. "No, Vanessa," I said quietly. "You already did that yourself." I pressed James's contact and put the phone to my ear, my eyes never leaving Vanessa's. The color drained from her face as she realized I wasn't bluffing. "Lucas?" James answered, sounding confused. "Everything okay?" "No," I replied steadily. "I need you to come to the Emerson bar on Westlake, right now. It's about Vanessa." "What's going on?" Concern edged his voice. "Is she hurt?" "She's fine," I said, watching her squirm. "But you need to see something for yourself." "I'll be there in 15, he said before hanging up. Vanessa stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her drink. "This is none of your business," she hissed. "You're just trying to distract everyone from your own failed relationship." "Sit down," I said quietly. "You're making a scene." Surprisingly, she did, though her hands shook with rage. Zachary looked like he wanted to disappear, while Alicia and the other women exchanged nervous glances. "You think you're so righteous?" Vanessa spat. "James and I have problems you know nothing about." "Everyone has problems," I replied. "Not everyone betrays the people who love them." The 15 minutes crawled by in tense silence. When James finally appeared at the entrance, scanning the dim interior, I raised my hand to catch his attention. As he approached, his confused expression shifted to something harder when he saw the group assembled before him. "What's going on?" he asked, eyes moving from me to Vanessa to Zachary. "Ask your wife," I said simply. James turned to Vanessa, whose face had gone completely white. "Vanessa?" "It's not what it looks like," she began, her voice shrill. "Lucas is just trying to cause trouble because Madeline—" "Stop," James cut her off. "Just tell me the truth, for once." The bar had gone quiet, other patrons sensing the drama unfolding. "I know already," James said softly. "I've known for weeks. I just wanted to hear you admit it." The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed, no words emerging. "I found the hotel receipts," he continued, "the text messages you forgot to delete. I was just waiting for you to be honest with me." I hadn't expected this twist. James had known all along? I felt suddenly intrusive, voyeuristic, witnessing the implosion of a marriage. "We're done," James said simply, turning to leave. "I'll have my lawyer contact you." As he walked away, Vanessa lunged out of her seat, following him. "James, wait! Let me explain." I left them to their private apocalypse and walked out, exhausted but somehow lighter. When I got home, Madeline was sitting on our couch, staring at her phone. She looked up as I entered, and I could see she'd been crying. "Vanessa just called me," she said quietly. "What did you do?" I took off my jacket and sat in the armchair across from her, keeping my distance. "I did what you should have done months ago. I told the truth." "It wasn't your place," she whispered, anger threading through her words. "No," I agreed. "It was yours, and you failed." "I was protecting my sister." "You were helping her deceive her husband," I corrected. "There's a difference." Madeline stood up, pacing. "You don't understand family loyalty." "Don't talk to me about loyalty," I said, my voice rising despite my attempt to stay calm. "You've been lying to my face for months, Madeline. Laughing at James behind his back. What kind of person does that?" "I never laughed at James," she protested. "I read your texts," I reminded her. "Every last one." She collapsed back onto the couch, her face in her hands. "I made a mistake." "A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or burning dinner," I said. "This was a calculated deception that went on for months, and it showed me exactly who you are." "Lucas, please." She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "I love you. I can't lose you over this. It's not even about us." "But it is," I insisted. "It's about character, about the kind of person I want to spend my life with." The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Vanessa burst in, her mascara streaked down her face, eyes wild with fury. "You ruined everything," she screamed, lunging at me before I could react. Her nails raked across my cheek, drawing blood as I stumbled backward. "Vanessa, stop!" Madeline cried, jumping up. I pushed Vanessa away, my hand to my bleeding face. "Get out of my house!" "You had no right," she continued screaming. "No right to interfere in my marriage." "Your marriage?" I laughed bitterly. "You destroyed that all by yourself." She came at me again, but this time I was ready, catching her wrists. "That's enough," I said firmly. "Leave now or I'm calling the police." "Do it," she challenged. "Call them. See if I care." It was clear she wasn't going to leave willingly. I released her wrists and pulled out my phone, dialing 911. "I need police at 1437 Oakwood Drive," I said when the operator answered. "A woman has broken into my home and assaulted me. She's still here and threatening further violence." "They're on their way," the operator assured me. Vanessa's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're actually calling the cops on me?" "You attacked me in my own home," I replied, holding a kitchen towel to my bleeding cheek. "What did you expect?" Madeline stood frozen between us, torn between her sister and her fiancé, or ex-fiancé now. "Vanessa, you need to leave," she finally said, her voice barely audible. "You're taking his side?" Vanessa's incredulity was almost comical. "After everything?" "I'm not taking sides," Madeline insisted. "But you can't just attack people." The police arrived within minutes, 2 officers at our door looking professional and unimpressed. They separated us, taking statements and photographing the scratches on my face. In the end, they led Vanessa away in handcuffs, charging her with assault. As they put her in the police car, I felt no satisfaction, only a bone-deep weariness. Madeline stood in the doorway, watching her sister being driven away, her face a mask of devastation. "I hope you're happy now," she said, not looking at me. I wasn't happy, not even close, but I was certain, more certain than ever, that calling off our wedding was the right decision. The days after Vanessa's arrest passed in a blur. Madeline moved out, taking her carefully labeled boxes and leaving behind only the faint scent of her perfume. I called vendors to cancel wedding arrangements, each conversation a fresh wound. Family members were informed with carefully worded texts, no details, just that the engagement was off. I couldn't bear to explain more. I was sitting alone in my half-empty living room when another unsettling thought surfaced. During Christmas last year, when my family had gathered at my place, Brandon had asked to use my laptop. I'd thought nothing of it at the time. What are brothers for? But now, in the wake of discovering so many lies, a nagging suspicion took root. Brandon had been acting strange lately. Lisa, his wife of 8 years, had mentioned he seemed distant. At the time, I'd chalked it up to work stress. I opened my laptop and checked my browser history from December. Nothing unusual at first glance. Brandon had cleared his tracks. But when I checked my deleted files, I found temporary images that hadn't been properly erased. Thumbnails from a video chat platform. One thumbnail showed a woman I didn't recognize, gorgeous, heavily made up, and definitely not Lisa. I reversed image searched her face and found a profile for Samantha Stars, an OnlyFans model with a significant following. My stomach dropped. While our family was downstairs exchanging gifts, Brandon had been upstairs sexting with a cam girl on my laptop. I sat back stunned. Was everyone in my life living a double life? Was I the only one not hiding something? After an hour of internal debate, I called Brandon on video. "Hey, Lucas, how are you holding up?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "Not great," I replied. "Just found out something I wish I hadn't." "About Madeline?" he asked carefully. "About you, actually." I watched his expression, saw the flicker of panic before he composed himself. "What are you talking about?" "Samantha Stars. Ring a bell?" I kept my voice even, no accusation. The color drained from his face. "Lucas, I can explain. You were using my laptop to chat with her during Christmas, while Lisa was downstairs with everyone else." He rubbed his face with both hands. "It's not what you think." "Isn't it?" I asked. "Because it looks like my big brother, who's lectured me my whole life about integrity, has been hiding something pretty significant." "It ended months ago," he said quietly. "It was just online stuff, never physical." "Does Lisa know?" His silence was answer enough. "How long?" I asked. "About a year," he admitted. "It started as just, I don't know, fantasy, an escape. Then it became an addiction, the secrecy, the excitement. I kept telling myself it wasn't really cheating because we never met in person. But it was," I said simply. "Yes," he whispered. "It was." We sat in silence for a moment, two brothers separated by a screen and by the weight of disillusionment. "Are you going to tell Lisa?" he finally asked, his voice small. That was the question, wasn't it? After everything I'd just been through with Madeline and Vanessa, shouldn't I be consistent? Shouldn't I insist that truth trumps all? But this was my brother, my family, the person who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd stood up for me when neighborhood bullies targeted me, who'd helped me move into my first apartment. "No," I said at last. "But you need to. Not today maybe, but soon. You need to talk to someone, a counselor, a therapist. Figure out why you did this, and you need to rebuild your marriage on honesty, or it's just a house of cards waiting to collapse." "I don't know if I can," he said, tears welling in his eyes. "She might leave me." "She might," I agreed, "or she might not. But continuing to lie guarantees you'll never have a real relationship again. Trust me on that." After we hung up, I sat in silence, surrounded by the wreckage of what I'd thought was my life. My fiancé, gone. My future brother-in-law, deceived. My own brother, not the man I'd thought he was. It felt like the universe was teaching me a brutal lesson about the gap between appearance and reality, between the stories we tell ourselves and the uncomfortable truths we ignore. I poured myself a drink and stepped outside onto my small patio. The night air was cool, the stars sharp against the darkness. For the first time in days, I took a deep breath that didn't hurt. Maybe this was rock bottom. Maybe when everything you believe in crumbles, you're finally free to build something real. No more illusions, no more comforting lies, just truth, painful and sharp-edged as it might be. I thought about Brandon, struggling with his secrets, and Madeline, maintaining her sister's elaborate deceptions. I thought about James, who'd known the truth but waited for his wife to admit it. So many ways to avoid confronting reality. I didn't know what my future held anymore. The neat, orderly path I'd imagined, marriage, house, kids, predictable holidays, had vanished. In its place was just possibility, terrifying, exhilarating possibility. For the first time since discovering Madeline's betrayal, I felt something like hope. Not happiness, not yet, but the potential for it. A chance to rebuild my life on a foundation of truth rather than convenience or appearances. I finished my drink and looked up at the stars, feeling very small and very clear-eyed. Whatever came next, I would face it honestly. No more looking away from uncomfortable truths. No more accepting beautiful lies. It was time to begin again. The aftermath of a canceled wedding is its own special kind of hell. Deposits lost, explanations demanded, whispers following you everywhere. Madeline's family was furious. Her mother called me repeatedly, leaving voicemails that ranged from tearful pleas to cold accusations. "You owe us an explanation," she insisted during our one and only conversation. 2 weeks before the wedding? What kind of man does that? I met with them once, at a neutral coffee shop. I didn't reveal Vanessa's affair, that wasn't my story to tell, but I was clear about Madeline's deception. "She participated in a conspiracy to help Vanessa cheat on James," I said simply. "She lied to my face repeatedly. I cannot build a life with someone I don't trust." Her father's face had registered shock, then something like reluctant understanding. Her mother remained stone-faced, loyal to her daughters no matter what. "Marriage requires forgiveness," she said stiffly. "Yes," I agreed, "but it also requires honesty to begin with." I moved out of our shared home into a small apartment across town. The solitude was both painful and cleansing. Every day I woke up knowing exactly where I stood. Alone, but on solid ground. James and I met for beers a month after everything imploded. His divorce was proceeding, but he seemed lighter somehow. Unburdened. "I should have confronted her months ago," he admitted. "I knew something was wrong, but I was afraid of what would happen if I acknowledged it." "I understand that now," I told him. "It's easier to live with suspicion than certainty sometimes." He raised his glass. "To no more bullshit." I clinked my bottle against his. "No more bullshit." Slowly, I began to rediscover myself. I joined a weekend hiking group, took a woodworking class I'd always been curious about, volunteered at a local animal shelter. I reconnected with old friends who drifted away during my relationship, friends Madeline had subtly discouraged. 6 months after what should have been my wedding day, I was sitting in a community art class, struggling with a pottery wheel, when a woman at the next station laughed at my misshapen attempt at a bowl. "First time?" she asked, her own perfectly formed mug sitting proudly beside her. "Is it that obvious?" I grinned, holding up my lopsided creation. "I've been there," she said, introducing herself as Olivia. "I can give you some pointers if you want." Her hands were steady as she guided mine, showing me how to center the clay. We talked easily about art and music and books. Later, over coffee, she mentioned she was recently divorced. "He cheated," she said matter-of-factly. "With my best friend, oldest story in the book." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "Don't be. It was the best thing that could have happened," she replied. "I'd been living someone else's version of my life for years." I didn't tell her my story that day or ask for her number. I wasn't ready yet, and rushing into something new felt like betraying the lessons I'd learned. But I thought about her words often in the weeks that followed. Living someone else's version of my life. Hadn't I been doing that too? Forcing myself into the role of husband-to-be, ignoring the nagging feeling that something wasn't right? One evening, I got a call from Brandon. He and Lisa were in counseling. He'd told her everything. "It was the hardest conversation of my life," he admitted. "But you were right. We're building something real now, even if it's from the ashes." As I hung up, I realized I was smiling. Not because everything was fixed, it wasn't, but because truth, however painful, was always the first step toward healing. I still don't know what the future holds. Sometimes I miss the certainty of my old life, the clear path I thought I was on. But that path was leading somewhere false, toward a life built on compromises I shouldn't have made. Now I wake up each day with possibilities stretched before me, undefined but authentic. I'm building a life that's truly mine, brick by honest brick, and that's enough.